I would like to speak about the 4 foundations of mindfulness, which is central to all of Buddhist practice. Mindfulness, or awareness, or sacred attention, is that capacity to be present and to know in this present moment what is actually happening. So the text on the teachings of mindfulness begins, "My friends," said the Buddha, "there is a most wonderful way for living beings to realize purification, overcome directly grief and sorrow, end pain and anxiety, travel the true path and realize enlightenment or awakening. And this way is the establishment of the foundations of mindfulness." What are these 4 foundations? A practitioner remains established in the awareness of the body, in the body, diligent with clear understanding, mindful, abandoning all grasping and resistance, knowing the body for what it is. The practitioner remains established in awareness of feelings, the feelings in the feelings, diligent, clearly, abandoning grasping and resistance, knowing feelings for what they are. The practitioner remains established in awareness of the mind, diligent, clearly understanding, mindful, abandoning grasping and resistance, seeing the mind for what it is. The practitioner remains established in the awareness of the laws of the body and mind, diligent, clear, abandoning grasping and resistance, seeing the laws of this body and mind for what they are. And how does one do this practice? How does one establish the awareness of body and mind? One goes to the forest, the foot of a tree, or an empty room and sits down quietly, holding one's body upright, and establishes mindfulness. First, being aware of the breath itself, breathing in, aware of breathing in, breathing out, aware of breathing out, breathing in a short or long breath, knowing when one is sitting, knowing when one is standing up or moving, bending one's arm, lifting, stretching, lying down, mindful in all postures, aware of feelings, aware of the states of mind, and aware of the laws that govern body and mind. That's the most central Buddhist text or teachings on the practice of awareness. The main gateway for awakening, or to discovering or opening the pure heart, is the practice of seeing things clearly. It is the gateway to the deathless. That is, that it brings us back to the mystery of this eternal present. We usually think of our mind being somewhere located inside our body. But when we begin to pay attention, it's more like the body is in the mind. The mind is very big, and it contains all of this experience. This is from Pema Chodron, Tibetan nun teacher. She says, this is the key, this quality of mindfulness. Mindfulness, presence, trains you to be awake and alive and curious about what? About just now. You sit in meditation and the breath moves, and then that is now. Coming in is now. Passing out is now. And waking up from your fantasies is now. And even the fantasies are now, although they seem to take you into the past and into the future. The more you can be completely now, the more you realize you're in the center of the world, standing in the middle of a sacred circle. It's no small affair whether you're brushing your teeth or cooking your food or wiping your bottom. Whatever you're doing it now. That is all we have, is now. So mindfulness is that presence now, to feel, to sense, to awaken. It is said to be the abode of the Buddhas. When you rest in mindfulness, you rest in the resting place of the Buddhas. Like a great walled city, one image was given, with only one gate. And there you stand by the gate and you know everything that comes in and everything that goes out. In the same way, to establish mindfulness just here and now, all the past comes as memory in the present. The future comes as ideas and imagination. All the possibilities are here in this moment now. Mindfulness, which is a spacious awareness, a free and spacious heart, brings a kind of balance. It starts with balance and a deep listening. To be mindful, this quality of mindfulness, means to be present without judging, without wanting or hoping or expecting or resisting what is. Just being here with what is in this moment. As the poet Robert Frost put it, he said, "Anything more than the truth would be too much. Just what is." And it's with this quality of awareness that we study life. We see it in its true state, in its suchness. We understand it. A monk who had been with the great Zen master Kasan went on pilgrimage. Everywhere he went, he found nothing to suit him. Moreover, each place he went, he heard praise for his own great master Kasan. So finally he returned and asked the master, "Why did you not reveal your profound understanding to me?" And the master replied, "When you wished to boil rice, did I not light the fire? When you handed out food, did I not hold out my bowl to receive it? When did I betray your expectations?" And at this the monk was enlightened. When you wished to boil rice, did I not light the fire? When you were passing out the food, didn't I put out my bowl? I was completely there with you in each moment. What more could there be? Mindfulness is a quality that is infinitely receptive. It has a deep listening to it. The listening like looking into the eyes of another person is looking, or listening to the sounds of the bird songs on these spring mornings, or the trees that are in blossom, or the cries of someone that you love who is unhappy or suffering or in pain. You listen. Somebody said mindfulness was like having a burglar in your house at night when it's dark. Oh, I heard something. It's very attentive. But it's different in that there, it's often coupled with fear and expectation, and this is simply a listening. Something is going to happen. Something's always going to happen in this moment. Mindfulness then is this attention, this listening, but with it there's also a deep rest or opening or relaxation. T.S. Eliot called it the still point. At the still point of the turning world, neither flesh nor fleshless, neither from nor towards. At the still point, there the dance is, neither arrest nor movement. Past and future are gathered, neither from nor toward, ascent nor decline. And except for the point, the still point, there would be no dance, and there is only the dance. Mindfulness allows us to come into a place of being or harmony or rest in any circumstance. Now, how to do this is the question, because this is not a philosophy that is being taught about how things should be, but a series of instructions or reminders of the possibility that we can live our life awake, free, that our heart can be open and our being can move through life freely. The instructions, as I read, were the 4 foundations of mindfulness. The first of them is the openness or awareness of body and form. So then one sits in a quiet place, establishes mindfulness, aware of the breath, breathing in a long breath. I know this is a long breath or a short breath. Aware of whatever position the body is in, lying down, standing, resting, looking in front or behind, bending or stretching. One brings full mindfulness to the body and its senses. And this is something we can actually learn. To steady ourselves, to return, to come back. And as we do, each breath, each step, each movement is new. It's something entirely new in the moment. It is like the Navajo who teach their children that every morning when the sun comes up, it is a brand new sun. It's born every morning, lives for one day, and in the evening it passes, never to return again. And as soon as the children are old enough to understand, the adults take them outside at dawn and say, "This sun has only one day. You must live this day in a good way, so the sun will not have wasted its precious time." When we become aware of the body, we start to feel the life of the body, not the idea of it, but the experience. And even in a breath, there's so much to sense. The breath coming in and out, whether the body's constricted or relaxed, if it's deep or if it's shallow, if it's long or it's short. And as we feel the breath, we can feel how life moves through us, that the breath breathes itself. In the same way, we can be aware of the other senses of life. To feel the breath as if it were your first breath. You're a newborn. Here's this first breath coming. Or to feel the breath as if this were your last breath, which it will be someday. Feel it come in one last time and pass out. It's not a controlling or making or trying to get the breath to do something. It's using the experience of breath to remember, to be awake, to be present. The breath breathes itself, and when we feel it, things quiet, the mind quiets down, the heart opens, and life just moves as it does in us. The whole sense of time drops away. Did you notice if you really feel one breath, there's no past or future, there's just this breath. The sense of self starts to change. Here we are with all our plans and ideas, and then for a moment there's just the breath. Just this eternal present. Like William Blake said, to see the world in a grain of sand and heaven in a flower, and hold infinity in the palm of your hand and eternity in an hour. In a breath it can happen. All of a sudden, we're just here. So to be aware in this way, mindful, is so simple. It's just coming back to this life that we have. And even 10 minutes of breathing can untie incredible knots. There you are, and there's this story of fear, or anger, or distress, or confusion. He did, and she did, and all the things you're caught up in, and what's going wrong, and what might go wrong, and what did, all that stuff. And then you sit and you feel your breath for 10 minutes. And if you really do it, it all just dissolves for that time. And you come into a different reality which allows for that, but isn't caught by it. Or the physical body, the mindfulness of this physical body. Maybe you have pain, you sit and your back is hurting, or your legs are hurting, or there's some place where there's pain in the body. And usually we just resist and contract and try and fix it a bit or distract ourselves. But here, just as one is mindful of the breath, there's the pain of the body that comes. Could be joy as well. But here's the pain. And if you go into it, pain's just the word. What does it feel like? Fire, throbbing, needles, pinpricks. It's doing all this stuff inside. Twisting, tingling. Pain's the word, but there's energy. It's alive. And then outside of that, there's the contraction. Oh, the body's tight. And then there's the fear. How long is this going to last? And then there are the stories. Oh, what happens if this is here for the whole evening of meditation? Maybe tomorrow too, when I had all these other plans and all the worries come. You know how it is? And all there is really this sensation in this body being alive. But there's the contraction and the fear and the worry and the stories and all that. And to be mindful is to say, yes, there's the fear and there's the worries and the stories and the word, pain. And here's the reality. It's just this moment of sensation. And we're just here with pain or pleasure, sound or sight, just here, alive. For many of us, it's a kind of relearning. We've lost ourselves, like that phrase from James Joyce, remember, where it said Mr. Duffy lived a short distance from his body. We're kind of like that. We've lost it. And to meditate is simply to come back and say, here, you're in this body. Or it's in you. We're alive in this physical form. To lift a cup of tea, to eat a fruit, an apple or a pear, to put your foot on the ground, to open the door of your car and sit down in it, grab the steering wheel, do this whole amazing thing of driving, to be where we are. So to be aware is to come back to this physical life and to honor it as we eat and speak and touch one another and move. And find then both awareness and respect and a kind of freedom in it. In this first foundation of mindfulness, there is also a reflection on death as part of it. Feel this body and notice the breath is changing and the sensations, and it's pleasant and tingly and painful and all the things that come through it, and then recognizing the change that you don't possess it, that it's here for a time to care for, but see it for what it is, limited. And then you can live wisely. Then each act, each time you touch another, each time you care for this body by eating or bathing or whatever, there's a sense of the preciousness of it, of the amazing fact of incarnation. We don't know how we got into this, but we're here for a certain time to really recognize it and care for it. So that's the first establishment of mindfulness, the foundation of awareness of the body. To see it for what it is. Then the second is the foundation of mindfulness of feelings. The second major area. So that whenever the practitioner has a feeling, a pleasant one, they recognize, this is a pleasant feeling. When they experience a painful feeling, this is a painful feeling. When they experience a neutral feeling, this is a neutral feeling. This is a pleasant experience based in the body, or an unpleasant experience based in the mind. Begin to recognize the whole domain of feelings that arise within this body and mind. Pleasant, neutral, and unpleasant. To see them for what they are, to feel them for what they are. Because usually we are lost in them or react. Pleasant ones come and we go, I like this. How do I keep this? How much can I get? How long can I keep it to stay? We grasp the pleasant. The unpleasant one comes and we contract, resist, got to get rid of this, figure out how to not feel this. And the neutral ones come and we tend to not notice them. We kind of go to sleep or ignore them or check out. But feelings are always happening. They're always there. Usually underneath, and yet they direct so much of our life. Jealousy or anxiety or our hope or our creativity, it's always moving us in all these directions, often completely unconscious. So to become aware means that we notice the play, the flow of feelings, even if they're subtle. from Wallace Stevens, the poet. I don't ask for the full ringing of the bell. I don't ask for a clap of thunder that would rent the veil in the temple. A scrawny cry will do, from far off among the willows and cattails, or from far off there among the galaxies. Just the littlest things, those feelings that are under there that make us move through our whole day or week or our life. To stay present, then, is to notice this quality of feeling and the elaborations that come from it, the pleasant feelings, the unpleasant, and all the things that come out of it. I mean, to feel itself is extraordinary. How did that happen? That there should be feelings, and yet often we're out of touch with them. In meditation, there is a reclaiming of the capacity to feel. And not just to feel, but to feel without being lost in the feeling, to let the feelings move as the breath moves, with some freedom of being. So we begin to notice what is the feeling that's present, its texture, its depth. How does it move like the weather changes through us? And if you pay attention with mindfulness to feelings, there's some, as the Buddha said, that are strong in the body, and some more that come as moods in the mind, and some that have both parts. And then you begin to notice them, and when you're aware of feelings, one of three things will occur. They will go away, or they will stay the same for a while, or they will get worse. And that's not the job of awareness. The job of awareness is to notice what happens. Here's pleasure, and I let myself feel it, and it dissolves. Or no, it gets stronger, it turns to rapture. Or here's fear, let myself feel this fear. And then it turns to worry or sadness, or goes away. Maybe there's 2 or 3 feelings. Just notice. Make the space for them to be there. And once you've recognized one feeling, at least, give it a name softly as you feel it. Sad, sad, or anxious, anxious. And feel it fully. Let it grow and open. Let it fill the space of body and mind as much as it likes. Or dissolve or change. See what it does as you give it space to open and move as it will. Feelings kind of move as you name them and allow them, bring an awareness to them. They float through. The ones that stay a long time stay often because we resist them, or we're not really paying attention and they keep cycling back. When you pay attention, they move in all different ways. Often we're caught in feelings, and being caught, we get lost in anger, lost in judgment, lost in need or greed or fear in certain ways that then snowball in our life and affect others and create all kinds of things leading to the suffering of ourselves and the suffering of other beings. If you look at the state of the world, the wars and the competition and the hunger and various human-caused sufferings, you see at the root of much of it feelings of fear, competition, anger, aggression, mistrust, and so forth. And when we get lost, all the sense of freedom of our being and our heart is gone. So what mindfulness does is it offers us another possibility of freedom in the realm of feelings. Awareness and mindfulness comes like a cool spring day. It's a presence or a depth of being that can feel this range of life without getting lost in it. This is a poem called The Invitation from Oriya Mountain Dreamer, who's an Indian elder, Native American elder. I'll read a portion of it and some more later. It doesn't interest me what you do for a living. I want to know what you ache for, and if you dare to dream of meeting your heart's longing. It doesn't interest me how old you are. I want to know if you will risk looking like a fool for love, for your dreams, for the adventure of being alive. It doesn't interest me what planets are squaring your moon. I want to know if you have touched the center of your own sorrow, if you have been opened by life's betrayals, or have become shriveled and closed from fear of further pain. I want to know if you can sit with pain, mine or your own, without moving to hide it or fade it or fix it. I want to know if you can be with joy, mine or your own, if you can dance with wildness and let ecstasy fill you to the tips of your fingers and toes without cautioning us to be careful, be realistic, or to remember the limitations of being a human. To be mindful of feelings is to come to know what it is to be alive. And to find in that the compassion in the midst of all of it. To find the trust that we can feel all these things. And that there's a freedom that can hold all of it, a spaciousness, a greatness of the heart. Like the Tao. If you open yourself to the Tao, you are at one with the Tao. You can embody it completely. If you open yourself to insight, you are one with the insight. You can use it completely. If you open yourself to loss, you are one with the loss, and you can accept it completely. Open yourself to the way, to the Tao, then trust your natural responses, and everything will fall into place. It is through knowing the feelings, this great spacious awareness. In that knowing, then, wisdom comes, how to respond, compassion comes naturally. Mindfulness of feelings. Then the third foundation, the place of practice of mindfulness, is mindfulness of the mind. And again, after sitting quietly and paying attention to breath and body and feelings, how does a practitioner become established in awareness of the mind? When the mind is desiring, the practitioner is aware, oh, this mind is desiring mind. When the mind is hating, oh, this is the hating mind. When the mind is not desiring, oh, this mind is not desiring or not hating. When the mind is tense, one is aware this mind is tense or frightened. This mind is not tense, not frightened. This mind is not composed, unstable. Oh, this state of mind is composed, at ease, free. One becomes aware of the energies of mind and the stories which arise with them. Awareness of longing, of fear and anger, and all of the elaborations, all of the states that may come. The mind is an amazing thing. I mean, we don't really understand it. We're in it, like fish in the water. One part of it is a thought factory, like a pasta factory that just pours out pasta in different shapes. You know how those shapes come out, but it's all the same basic stuff, right? And it's the stuff of thoughts. And the thoughts, they come and they come and they come. And usually, they're there and we're not even aware of them. As Castaneda, was instructed by Don Juan, said, you talk to yourself too much. You're not unique in that. Every one of us does. We maintain our world with our inner dialogue. A spiritual warrior is aware that the world will change completely as soon as they stop talking to themselves. So there's this whole story that we're telling about how it is, rather than being with the reality of how it is. There's a test, kind of like the Rorschach inkblot test that you learn in psychological training, called the TAT, the Thematic Apperception Test, that a friend of mine who's a psychologist at Harvard, Jack Engler, he went around and studied different masters in Asia, and he gave them some Western psychological tests to see how they would do on the Rorschach and this one. And the TAT has 10 pictures that are sort of ambiguous. So one of the cards has an image of this man sitting at a table and a woman in the doorway looking like she just entered to look at him or is just about to go out of the door. You can't tell. And you kind of look at this image and you see it, and then you tell a story. And the stories people tell, she just left, it's so tragic, or she's so angry at what he did, or she's actually frightened, she's ashamed of what happened, or, oh no, he loves her so much and they're just reunited, or they have so much to share, and it's the same image. You understand? In 1,000 different stories. And we do that, we take a little bit of information and then we make incredible stories about it. That we have no idea whether there's any fact, or even if there's a little bit of fact. And we're so much in the thought and the story that we miss the person that we're walking with, or living with, or talking to, or the spring day around us, because we're in the stories all the time. Do you know what I mean? So to be mindful of the mind is to see this incredible thought factory. And the thoughts are images, and words, and pictures, and stories that we tell, and to see how much we get lost and to awaken from that. Mark Twain put it this way. He said, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortunes, most of which never happened." For most, he said, life doesn't consist mainly of facts and happenings. It consists mainly of storms of thoughts blowing through the mind. So to become mindful is to see all of that and to find the freedom in this moment that says, yes, look at that amazing story, a loving story, a powerful story, a crazy story, a fearful story. And in a sense, we use the breath or the sitting of our own body or the sounds around us, something that's very immediate and simple, and use that to create a sense of presence that then can open this space that allows thoughts to come and go. We don't fight them, but we see them for what they are. The power of mindfulness is to know what is so and see it for what it is. That is simply a thought. That's imagination. Those are words. That's a picture. It is what it is. You can begin to know thoughts for what they are. And then somehow you rest in the space of knowing, the space of the heart. Continuing with this poem from Oriah Mountain Dreamer. It doesn't interest me if the story you are telling me is true. I want to know if you can disappoint another to be true to yourself. If you can bear the accusation of betrayal and not betray your own soul. I want to know if you can be faithful and therefore be trustworthy. I want to know if you can see beauty even if it's not pretty every day. And if you can source your life from the divine presence. I want to know if you can live with failure, yours and mine, and still stand on the edge of a lake and shout to the silver of the full moon, yes. So, mindfulness of the body and the senses, the world, mindfulness of feelings, mindfulness of the mind, and finally mindfulness, the fourth foundation, of the laws, the Dharma, that which governs the body and mind. And in mindfulness of this, one becomes aware, for example, this is suffering or struggle. This is the cause of suffering. This is the end or the release of that suffering. This is the place, the path to ending of that struggle. This is the mind that's entangled. This is the mind that frees itself from entanglement. This is the mind of habit. This is how habit works. This is the release from habit. To begin to see what is so in the nature of experience, the laws that govern this life. We are a process. our feelings change, and we can begin to experience and acknowledge what happens to this process. You feel the breath, and every breath is different. You note moods, and maybe they last 10, 15, 20 seconds, and then they change to another mood. You note thoughts, and they're quicker. They're there for a moment, and then they disappear. Feelings are a little slower. Sensations are even slower as they move and change in the body. To be mindful is to know what is present, and also to know what happens to it. Oh, there's a thought or a feeling. What happens? It turns into that one. It dissolves in space. This one arises. And in this, you begin to see the patterns that create life, which is called the understanding of habit or karma in some way. A bear paced up and down the 20-foot length of his cage when, after 10 years, the cage was removed. The bear continued to pace up and down those 20 feet as if the cage were still there. When you begin to observe the mind and the body and the feelings, you start to see the patterns and how the patterns get repeated or how we get identified with them, and also the possibility of release. Because the more we pay attention mindfully, the more what seems fixed and solid is fluid, changing, empty, full of holes. Thoughts don't last for but a moment. Feelings come like the weather, disappear. The whole sense of self is just a story that we tell ourselves. It's like E.B. White said when he talked about analyzing humor. You can't really analyze it, he said. It's like a frog that dies under dissection. And similarly, you can't quite analyze the self. It's a mystery. You know the phrase, I think, therefore I am? So Zen Master Sansanim says, I think, therefore I am. I don't think, therefore what? What happens when I'm not thinking? Oh. And what you start to see is that we can grasp or identify, this is me, my thought, my perception, my way of seeing my body. That my and that whole grasping is extra. Actually, it does itself. It breathes itself, it thinks, it feels. And it's not separate at all. It's like when somebody says, what do? You might answer, when? Because we get identified, I'm a this or that, but actually that's just the whole idea. The reality is we're always doing something different. And there comes then naturally an inner freedom. The factors of enlightenment we talked about last week, joy, equanimity, discovery or peace, all of those things come naturally out of the mindfulness that sees the feelings, the body, the mind arise and pass and do its dance and knows it for what it is. There comes a very natural compassion because we're not fighting life, and then the heart is present to receive what's there. It's fantastic. Mindfulness in a moment brings us to freedom. You can be so caught in stuff and it's so terrible in your middle, and a moment you say, boy, I'm really caught in this, aren't I? And the moment we say, oh, really caught in that one, it's like, it just opens, it drops away. The jealousy or the fear or the confusion or the depression or whatever it is. And then the heart becomes still, like a mirror. A child falls, what do? You help them up, you hold them. Somebody's hungry, you feed them. Because you're there and it's natural. It's part of what we are, we're so connected. We all know this, we all have these moments of this realization, and then we get lost again. When we're open, when mindfulness becomes established in us, reminded, reconnected with that, we rest in our true nature. We see the world with the eyes of the beloved, that it's us, it's all just us. It's our brothers and sisters. And there's a tremendous freedom from it. The end of this Satipatthana Sutta, the text on mindfulness, the Buddha says, monks, my friends, whoever practices these establishments of mindfulness for 7 years can expect one of two fruits: the highest enlightenment fully here and now, or a stage almost akin to that. But not 7 years, my friends. In 6 years, 5, 4, 3, 2 years, a year, a month, you can expect the fruits of enlightenment. Even, my friends, whoever practices this practice of full awareness, let alone a month, for 7 days, can expect enlightenment. It's the Buddha's kind of money-back guarantee. Now, I heard this. My teacher, Ajahn Chah, said this. He quoted the Buddha. And I said, is that still true? And he said, absolutely. I said, you mean that if I'm mindful for 7 days, the Buddha guarantees enlightenment? I said, this is a deal, you know. I don't have to stay so long in this monastery in Asia. He said, yes. So I said, great, I'm on, you know. Went back to my cottage, sat down, established this posture. I'm sit like a Buddha. 7 days, just fine. Started to breathe, felt 3, 4, 6 breaths. All of a sudden, I noticed a little while later that I was thinking about all the great things I was going to do after I was enlightened, right? Said, okay, 7 days starts now, right? So it wasn't quite as easy as it seemed to be aware for 7 days. The last part of Oriya, Mountain Dreamer's poem. It does not interest me to know where you live or how much money you have. I want to know if you can get up after the night of grief and despair, weary and bruised to the bone, and do what needs to be done for the children. It doesn't interest me who you are or how you came to be here. I want to know if you will stand in the center of the fire with me and not shrink back. It doesn't interest me where or what or with whom you have studied. I want to know what sustains you from the inside when all else falls away. I want to know if you can be alone with yourself, and if you truly like the company you keep in the empty moments. There's a beautiful spirit of freedom in that poem, and integrity. And the spirit of freedom and integrity is there in each of us through this possibility of being present. It's only this. There's just now. And so all the practices and teachings and all the different schools of Buddhism and all that stuff, it's really very simple. It's here. As Ram Dass would say, be here now. That simple. Be here now. Establishing this quality of presence, your own Buddha nature, here, awake, knowing what is so in the body or feelings, the mind, all that moves in the space of mind. The still point of the turning world, the place of freedom of the heart, is here, is now.